Stanford University.
Each year, we gather around this time to celebrate the life and work of one of Iran's most accomplished artists. Tonight is, for several reasons, a special occasion. 10 years ago, Stanford's rich intellectual landscape was barren when it came to Iran. There was no program and no classes in Iran. Today, we have 4 people teaching full-time on Iran, and enough other classes on the subject relating to Iran that we can now offer a certificate in Iranian studies. Over the last 3 years alone, we have organized over 80 events with close to 6,500 people attending them. The list of our upcoming events will be an envy of any university anywhere in the world. We have workshops on music by Namju. We have workshops on Shahnameh by Professor Beyzahi, which is going to end in a one-act play that he will direct, and his wonderful wife will be the lead actress in it. We have a stage reading by Sayyad, and we have Daryabari and Kimyavi coming to show their films. I don't think there's any place in the world, including inside Iran, where such a constellation could have gathered. This transformative change has been made possible by the visionary leadership and generosity of Hamid and Christina Muqaddam, who launched the program. Hamid is here tonight, and that initial vision was then augmented by the endless generosity of Bita Daryabari, who helped us develop our program in Persian, arts, and letters. Tonight is special because for the first time in our 5-year award ceremonies, both Bita and Hamid are here. Because of their leadership and their generosity, now there are programs in multiple universities in the United States and Canada trying to emulate what we have done here at Stanford. We wish them luck, but we remind them that part of what has made this happen is the magic of Stanford and the generosity, infinite generosity of these 2 people. Let me say a few words about our winner tonight, Professor Houshang Seyhoun, whose presence has been especially cherished and dear to all of us. For over half a century, the Seyhoun name has been synonymous with the highest standards of aesthetic modernism in Iran. Let me read you a few passages from a biographical sketch I wrote about him 3 years ago. For some, art is a vocation. For others, an avocation. For a few, it is an existential exigency, not a means to an end, but the end of all means, not a tool for survival, but the very reason for existence. Houshang Seyhoun is that rare breed of human being. He has lived in, for, and through art all his life. He was born in Tehran on August 22nd, 1920, 31 Mordad, 1299, to a cultured family steeped in music. His father taught violin, his mother played the tar. Mirza Abdullah, one of the most influential figures in the history of Persian classical music, was his grandfather. I was raised with music in my ears, says Professor Seyoun. He was about 3 when he discovered his passion for painting, and a few years later, he decided that he wanted to become an artist. Contrary to the common ethos of Persian families, who would usually try to dissuade the children from a life in the arts, Seyhoun's parents encouraged him to follow his bliss. He finished his high school in Tehran. He was a good student, but his preoccupation and his passion were for paintings. About that time, much to the consternation of the clergy, a new college was built in Iran for arts. The building of that college was in the storied Marv Seminary. The college was the brainchild of a minister of culture at the time, Ismail Merad. But the secularism policies of Reza Shah had allowed the government to evict the mullahs from the seminary and put a modern art college in its place. Where mullahs used to teach Shiite Sharia, French professors were now talking about Modigliani and modernism. The legendary Monsieur Andre Godard ran the school. The language of instruction was French. Among the professors was the famed scholar and artist Houshang Seyhoun, the author of the classic study of Caravanserais in Iran. Seyhoun stayed at the school for 4 years and earned a degree in architecture. At about that time, Iran was undergoing a profound set of changes. Reza Shah was deposed, and the mullahs, suddenly emboldened by Mohammad Reza Shah's new conciliatory policies, demanded their old seminary back. They got their wish, and the College of Fine Arts was left homeless. It moved to the basement of the Faculty of Engineering at Tehran University. Seyhoun had by then shown his precocious talent in a surprisingly large number of fields in the visual arts. He had experimented with abstract expressionism, calligraphy, pencil drawings, and had even pioneered a new technique of using felt to create artwork. He had won a number of prestigious awards and competitions as a student. When the Iranian government decided to give him a medal to commemorate the Tehran Conference of 1943, Seyhoun, though still an undergraduate student at Honarkadeh, won the competition to design. Even more impressive was Seyhoun's success in winning 2 of the most important architectural competitions of that time. The Iranian Association of Historic Monuments decided to build a memorial to Ferdowsi, Iran's answer to Homer. Seyhoun won the award with a design that drew its inspiration from the classical monumentality of the pre-Islamic Persian architecture. This was the harbinger of a paradigm change in the Iranian aesthetic sensibilities that was to bloom in full 2 decades later. The second design of his that won the award in that period was his monument to Ibn Sina, known to the West as Avicenna, Iran's great Aristotelian philosopher. Although Seyhoun had won the French government's scholarship to go and study abroad, he was reluctant to go. He was understandably keen on making sure that his Ibn Sina project saw its completion. Seyhoun ultimately went to Paris when his mentor, Godard, assured him that if the money was ready for the Avicenna project, he would call him back. In Paris, Seyhoun embarked on his work at college and completed his work within 4 years. In 1948, another piece of serendipity helped Seyhoun. About the time he finished his course of study, he heard from Godard that the necessary funds for the Ibn Sina monument had finally been procured. He returned to Iran and immediately established his own firm. While completing the memorial, he also began accepting private commissions. Godard, who was now the dean of Tehran University's College of Art and Architecture, invited Seyhoun to join the faculty, and thus began Seyhoun's long and distinguished academic career. In November 2005, about 100 of his students, many of them Iran's most eminent architects of today, gathered from all over the world in Dubai to celebrate Seyhoun's more than 50 years of teaching and mentoring. Seyhoun's most important contribution as an artist, architect, and teacher was his role in the emergence of a new kind of cultural and aesthetic modernity in Iran. In the mid-20th century, as trained architects began to arrive in Iran from the West, they designed buildings that emulated in their fundamental architectural language the work of Western architects. Whether they trained in France and followed the Beaux-Arts tradition, or in America where they were inspired by the likes of Frank Lloyd Wright or Philip Johnson, the impulse was to imitate the West. But by late 50s, in nearly every aesthetic domain, a new vision of modernity was beginning to emerge. In the field of architecture, Seyhoun was one of the most important pioneering figures. In 1961, he became the Dean of the College of Arts and Architecture at Tehran University. His tenure lasted 7 years. He used the period to bring about important changes in the curriculum at the college. One of his favorite subjects was the traditional Iranian architecture. He taught a class on the subject. His lectures, as well as his drawings of those great buildings, have been published in French and in Persian. In his own mind, his most important contribution to architecture was to inaugurate the practice of requiring all Iranian students at the university to travel throughout the country and visit old and new buildings in villages and towns, marking grand monuments of the past, as well as simple adobe buildings of today. He ordered a special bus for these trips and often accompanied the students on their journeys of discovery. After the first year, he also invited an official of Iran's Department of Antiquities, and as a result, many important but hitherto ignored buildings were placed on the list of historic sites and marked for preservation. While Seyhoun continued his teaching and pursued his work at the architectural firm, designing at least 150 private homes, 2 cinemas, several factories, many other buildings, he was also active as a painter. By the mid-1970s, he had achieved an international reputation. His works had been shown in Iran and around the world, including an exhibit at the University of Massachusetts, where his paintings hung alongside those of Picasso and Dali. Not only was art his vocation and avocation, but his private emotional life was also inseparable from the realm of art. In 1952, he married Houshang Seyhoun. She was an accomplished painter herself. She went on to establish the Seyhoun Gallery, and for the next 3 decades, the gallery remained the preeminent house for exhibiting modern art in Iran. Many of today's most cherished painters had their first exhibits at the Seyhoun Gallery, people like Zohrab Sebehri and Hossein Zendebudi. With his work as an architect and an artist of myriad accomplishment, with his paintings, the name Seyhoun has come to conjure modernism and a refined aesthetic sense in the minds of most urban Iranians. It is in recognition of all of these facts that this year he is the winner of the Bita Prize in Arts. Before asking Professor Neymar to come and introduce Bita Daryabari, who needs little introduction, I want to thank several people who have worked tirelessly to make this evening and the reception that follows upstairs possible. First and foremost, I must thank Ms. Basang Sherpa, who embodies Zen calm in the eye of the storm, any storm, and whose grace, hospitality, and efficiency has been one of the greatest assets of the Iranian Studies program. I would also like to thank our student interns who have given selflessly of their time, even on the eve of the exam week, to help us tonight. Ms. Jordan Limonge, Mr. Michael Petticoat, Mr. Mark Rapaz of the ICA helped us with the design of the posters and the evening program. Thank you all for coming, and I ask Professor Neymark, the new leader of ICA, to come and say a few words about Bita. Daryabari.
Thank you, Alice. Welcome to all of you. Gives me great pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of Stanford University, Richard Saller, who is the Dean of Humanities and Sciences, and my boss, and the Division of International Comparative and Area Studies, of which I am the director. We are all enormously proud of the accomplishments of the Iranian Studies program at Stanford, and let me start by expressing my personal gratitude to its founding director, Abbas Malani, who's done an amazing job, as you know, in bringing Iran, its history, its culture, and politics to the center of campus attention. Thank you, Abbas. Thank you very much. It's my privilege and pleasure tonight to introduce Ms. Bita Daryabari, a woman who I have learned needs little introduction to most of you in the audience. She's one of the most highly regarded and respected members of the Iranian diaspora community. Bita Daryabari has been a generous donor, not just to Stanford, but to many philanthropic causes in the United States and around the world. She's the founding director of the Pars Foundation, which was the first organization to provide legal guidance and support to Iranian refugees coming to the United States. She's helped build schools in distant places like Palestine and Afghanistan. Her endowment at Stanford's Iranian Studies program has allowed us to expand into the realm of arts and literature. And I should add that Iranian Studies itself at Stanford was launched as a consequence of the visionary leadership and generous endowment of Hamid and Christina Moghadam. Hamid is with us here tonight, and I'm glad to be able to welcome him back to Stanford and express our gratitude for his support. The Bita Prize, which we're here tonight to celebrate, is a critical part of the Daryabari Endowment, and has allowed us to bring to our campus some of the luminaries of Iranian arts and letters in the past 5 years. From the outset, Bita has encouraged us to dedicate a good part of our efforts to affording the Iranian community in the area a chance to share in the works of art and scholarship presented here on campus. Her humility and humanity, her love of the arts, her pride in the rich Persian heritage, her tireless desire to share that legacy with citizens of her new country make her an exemplar of wise, compassionate, and prudent philanthropy. Thus, it's with great pleasure that I ask Ms. Bita Daryabari to come to the stage and present the award to tonight's winner.
Thank you, Professor Neymark, for your incredible, kind, and generous introduction. I truly don't deserve all the remarks and credits you gave me. Thank you very much. I think we need Professor Seyhoun to design a little bit higher table for me, because as I'm aging, it seems like I won't be able to read these things. I have to bring it up. Maybe I need glasses. Well, greetings and welcome. I would like to begin my remarks in Farsi, the language and culture that we are gathered here to celebrate. با درود و سلام خدمت حضار و مهمانان عزیز به مراسم امشب ما خوش آمدید. این پنجمین باری است که در چنین مراسم پرقدری شرکت می‌کنیم و هر بار برای بزرگداشت زندگی و کارهای یکی از بزرگان فرهنگمان گرد هم آمدیم. وقتی 5 سال پیش این برنامه را در این دانشگاه شروع کردم، در راهی رفتم که بیشتر سنگ اول آن را حمید و کریستینا مقدم گذاشته بودند. هیچ کار بزرگی را یک نفر انجام نمی‌تواند داد و ارائه تصویری دقیق از ایران و میراث فرهنگی آن کاری به راستی بزرگ است. امشب در اینجا گرد هم آمدیم تا زندگی پربار یکی از بزرگترین معماران و نقاشان ایران را ارج بشناسیم. خوشحالم که می‌بینم برخی دانشگاه‌های دیگر هم در راهی مشابه گام گذاشتند و جریان شناخت و شناساندن زبان و فرهنگ و ادب و فکر ایران را آغاز کردند. باید دست به دست هم بدهیم و این بار گران را به منزل برسانیم. حداقل مسئولیت ما در برابر ایران و فرزندانمان این است که تصویری در کار غنای فرهنگ و زبانمان در اختیار آنان و همه کسانی که در این مملکت زندگی می‌کنند بگذاریم. برای من مایه بسی خوشبختی است که امسال هم چون دیگر سال‌هایی که برندگان این جایزه یعنی کسانی چون سیمین بهبهانی، گلیه ترقی، بهرام بیضایی، محمد رضا شجریان که هر یک در بخشی از این میراث پیشکسوت بودند و مهمان عزیز امشب ما استاد سیهون هم خود سرآمد پیشکسوتان معماری و هنرهای زیبا بوده و هست. خیلی متشکرم که آقای سیهون تشریف آوردین امشب و در خدمت ما هستین. اگه اجازه بدین بقیه صحبتم را به انگلیسی ادامه میدم. It gives me special pleasure to welcome you all to the 5th annual celebration of Bita Prize in Persian Letters. From the beginning of my work with Stanford, Dean Saller and past directors of the ICA division, where my endowment lies, have invariably offered their support. I'm proud of the work that we have been able to do to make Stanford now one of the most vibrant and respected centers for the study of Persian culture, language, and literature. And we all know this couldn't be possible without the generosity of Hamid and Christina Mogaddam. Thank you, Hamid John. And also, Dr. Milani, you have been and continue to be an extraordinary gift, visionary and bold leader of our community. Thank you for the grace and wisdom, elegance and power, and care and love that you bring to our Iranian studies program at Stanford. Thank you, Professor Seyhoun, for accepting our invitation. If we take a quick look back at the winners, it confirms that the fact that they were each a luminary in their fields. And this year's winner, Professor Seyhoun, is no exception. From my early years in Iran, the Seyhoun name was synonymous with the finest traditions in art and architecture, both passions of my life. Gallery Seyhoun was where every major Iranian artist aspired to exhibit his or her works. Professor Seyhoun himself, a highly innovative and creative painter, was best known for the revolution he helped bring to Persian architecture. His fusion of modernism and tradition, his insistence of teaching to his students the magic and mystery of Persian traditional architecture, while always requiring of them familiarity with latest developments in modernism elsewhere in the world. And finally, some of his beautiful, enduring, unmistakably modern and traditional Persian designs for monuments to past Persian poets and philosophers, his tireless work to educate 2 generations of Iran's best architects, all combine into making yet another stellar addition to our past winners of this award. If Simin Behbahani, our first winner, showed the defiant and delicate poetry and presence of women in today's Iranian society, and if our last winner, Mr. Bahram Beyzai, embodies the best in Persian theater and cinema, painter, an educator, an architect, Mr. Professor Seyhoun is another person that all of his work, all of his impressive accomplishments shows that he is our next prize winner. I would like to invite him to join me here to receive his prize and tell us about the rich and enriching life he has led. Professor Seyhoun.
بفرمایید حرف رو باید بکنم.
There is a, in your program, there is a small statement that Professor Seyhoun has prepared. They have translated that. It is in your program. You're not going to repeat it. He's going to make a few comments, and then he decided that it is best that he try to answer questions that you might have about his work and about his painting and about his career. So we can even begin with the questions, and then we can process our answer and then make the opening remarks that
بنده دیگه صحبتی ندارم برای صحبت هایی کردیم شما بر ما جایی نداشتیم. فقط خلاصه من یک خلاصه اجازه فرمایید عرض میکنم خدمتتون که من زاده زمان احمدشاه هستم. احمدشاه اواسط سلطنتش بعد تولد پیدا کردم در تهران و یکی از مهمترین اهداف انقلاب مشروطه نوآوری و نوجویی و مدرنیته بود که من از طفولیت با پیشرفت و تحولی که در این مورد پیش می آمد در ایران با هم دیگه حرکت میکرد. اون موقع اگر سفره روی زمین پهن میکردن و دو زانو یا 4 زانو میشستن و غذا با دست میخوردن یواش یواش کار به چنگال آمد وسط که خودش ناآوری یه چند وقت بعد سفره تغییر محل داد رفت روی میز یه تغییر فکر بود در ناآوری. کرسی برای گرم کردن مردم بود در اتاقاشون تبدیل شد به بخاری همشار تبدیل شد به بخاری هیزومی تبدیل شد به بخاری زغال سنگی تبدیل شد یواش یواش به شفار. از این نوع همش در حال تحول بود. بنابراین این موضوع نوآوری در داخل زندگی بنده دخالت داشت و وادار میکرد که بندم تو این زمینه برم. دبیرستانمون رو ادامه دادیم، رسیدیم به دانشگاه. بنده در یک فامیل 100% موسیقیدان زاده شدم و از پدر بزرگ و بالای پدر بزرگ و جد و آباد همه در حال ترنم بودن، در حال نواختن یه سازی بودن. و جالب این است که از فامیل کسی مربی غیر فامیل نداشته. فامیل توی خود فامیل همدیگر تعلیم میدادن و موسیقی ها میگردن. این وسط این فامیل موسیقیدان که الان هم خیلی هاشون سر زبان ها هستن، یه نفر پیدا میشه مثل بنده از 2-3 سالگی اصلا گرایشی به طرف موسیقی پیدا نمیکنه و میره سراغ نقاشی و زغال خونه رو سیاه میکنه از این ور به اون ور. کسی هم مانع نمیشه. جالب این است که پدر مادر بنده رو آزاد میذاشتن، هر چی دلم میخواد این کار رو بکنم. و بعد هم که رسیدم به پایه دانشگاه ازار گرفته بودم که چه کار بکنم که یک رشته‌ای انتخاب بکنم که جواب کار من رو بده، که خوشبختانه همون سال دانشکده‌ای به نام هنرکده تأسیس شد که معماری و نقاشی و مجسمه سازی داشت، 3 رشته، و بنده رفتم در رشته معماری که خوشبختانه اون موقع کادر تعلیماتی دانشکده همه تقریبا فرانسوی بودن و چیزی آورده بودن که از نوگرایی که بنده تشنش بودم و آرزوشو داشتم و دنبالش بودم بیشتر تشنگی منو رفع میکردم و استادا یعنی دانشکده تقریبا فرانسه زبان بود. ما از اون موقع عادت کردیم به زبان فرانسه. استادی بنده انتخاب کردم مکسیم سیرو بود که امشب به یاد او من این صحبت ها رو میکنم که خیلی چیزها فرار گرفتم ازش و این نوآوری که از زمان احمدشاه در من زنده شده بود در دوران تحصیل دانشگاهی خیلی دیگه زیاده از حد تشدید روش داشته شد و بعد هم که انتخاب شدم برای اینکه برم به دولت به مملکت فرانسه اونجا تکمیل مطالعات بکنم که جای خود داره. این است که این نوآوری و مدرنیسم در وجود بنده رشد پیدا کرد و رسید به جایی که و خودم کارهایی تر از در حقیقت تحویل جامعه دادم که اینها نه تنها در ایران شد در دنیا بی‌نظیر بودن، تعریف از خود نفرمایید. و اون معماری بود که از طریق سمبولیسم یا نمادین زندگی نامه و تخصص کسانی رو که براشون یاد بود می ساختم اینها رو به نحوی به نمایش بگذارم. این خیلی علاوه بر مدرنیسم این تکمیل کنندش بود. دیگه جناب پروفسور میلانی سنگ تمام برای بنده گذاشتن که ازشون تشکر میکنم و بعد بیتا خانم عزیز، بیتا بانو، بیتا بانوی فرهنگ ایران بنده رو خجالت زده کردن و نمیدونم چجوری سپاسگزاری بکنم که حق مطلب رو داده باشم. امیدوارم که همیشه در این راه موفق باشید و اون کاری که شروع کردید به نحو کامل انجام بدید.
It's going to be a talk or
سوال جواب میشه.
بله، خیلی تجربه کنم برای اجنبی ها. I was born during the reign of Ahmad Shah. It was in the midst of his reign, and I was born in Tehran. One of the most important goals of the constitutional revolution was modernization and modernity in every facet of life. And from my childhood, this kind of evolution, this kind of desire for change became part of my existence. When I was a child, we used to lay cloth on the floor and eat on it with our hands. Gradually, forks and knives appeared. This was one step forward. Then a piece of cloth was transformed onto a table. Another evolution, another modernization. The traditional form of sleeping around source of heat, the corsi, gave place to heaters that began with coal, and then eventually we learned about the central heating system. Each of these were part of the modernization process that Iranian society was experiencing. And it was thus that modernization, searching for the new, became an essential part of my life. In a way, it made it inevitable for me to become a modernist. I finished high school and elementary school in Tehran and began the university. I was born into a family that was 100% steeped in music. My father, my grandparents were all musicians. And there was music in our house constantly. Everybody in the house played some instruments. Everyone in the house learned to play this instrument from some other member of the house. We never had a coach that was not a member of the family. Many of these names, many of these family members are renowned today as top musicians, prominent musicians of Iran. But in the midst of this long, old family of musicians, I was the only one who, from the age of 3, decided that I did not want to become a musician, and I decided that I wanted to become a painter. I picked up coal and I began to blacken every white space that I could find in the house. And I must thank my parents who left me alone and allowed me to do this blackening of white spaces. When I neared the time when I had to go to the university, I was perplexed. I did not know how I could go to a university that would satisfy my craving for art. And as luck would have it, in that very year, Honarkadeh, focusing on architecture and painting, began its work. Virtually every one of the teachers were French, and the language instruction was French, and what they brought to me and what they brought to us was modernism. I got more than my craving for this modernism. The person that I particularly took a liking to, the professor that I took a particular liking to, was Houshang Seyoun. He was my professor. I learned a great deal from him, and I dedicate my comments tonight to his memory. Once I received the fellowship and went to France to continue my education, the spirit of modernism that I encountered there only augmented what was already in me, this thirst for innovation. Gradually, once I returned to Iran, I made some innovations of myself in this modernism. I think I developed a style of modernist architecture that was not only unique in Iran, but may I say that it was unique in the world. In some of the monuments that I built, I used symbolism to represent the life and work of the person for whom I was building that monument. I want to thank the Grand Dame of Iranian culture, Bita. I wish you success. I hope that you will successfully bring to fruition this immense work that you have started. You also thank me for translating. Now you can have questions.
سوال که داشتم تأثیرات خانواده موزیک فرموز خانواده که موسیقی خیلی اصول بزرگ شده تأثیر موزیک کارهای هنری معماریتون چه نتیجه داشته و شما که تو خانواده موزیک بزرگ شدید چطور هنر معماری رو انتخاب کردید به موزیک؟
I'd like to congratulate you for winning the prize. I would like to congratulate you and thank you for the immense amount of work that you have done. My question is, as you have been born in a family steeped in music, was there any impact, influence that music had in your style of architecture? Or put it another way, well, how was it that you were in a musical family but chose to become an artist?
بنده خدمتتون عرض کنم که بی اندازه موسیقی تأثیر خودش رو در بنده گذاشته و همیشه میذاره و هر کاری رو که میخوام شروع کنم توأم با موسیقی عمل میکنم. یعنی موسیقی برقراره، بنده مشغول طراحی خودم هستم. و اما چیزی رو که ارث بردم بنده از موسیقی ایرانی خودمون اون این است که موضوع بداهه نوازی بی اندازه اهمیت داشت. نوت نبود، سینه به سینه یاد میگرفتم و دستگاه ها رو حفظ میکردم به ترتیبی که این جالبه. فرض بکنید یه دستگاه شور، توی دستگاه شور از یکی از موسیقیدان ها خواسته میشد که در یه جلسه یک آهنگی بنوازه، بر حسب احساسی که در اون مجلس بهش دست میداد در شور کار خودش رو انجام میداد. اگر یه هفته بعد در یه مجلس دیگری باز قرار بود که در دستگاه شور یه چیزی ایشون ارائه بده، یه نغمه بنوازه، اون شوری که در هفته پیش انجام داده با اون فرق میکنه. یعنی به نسبت اون حال و هوایی که تغییر میکرد این هم یعنی بداهه، به صورت بداهه فکر عوض میشد. بعد این ارث به دستم رسیده به ترتیبی که بداهه نگاری میکنم. حالا در کتابم کسانی که کتاب بنده رو دیدن یا دارن ملاحظه فرمودید که در دو نوع کار این ارث رو عرضه کردم. یکی در بلیط های مترو پاریسه که این بلیط های مترو پاریس روش چند تا رقم یعنی چند تا عدد نوشته شده، دو مثلا مال درجه دوه، یو، دو تا یو وسط شکل تیره گذاشته شده، مترو اتوبوس جاش نوشته شده. روی این نوشته ها و این ارقام یه خطایی من اضافه کردم، یه شکلی در آوردم. نه اینکه بشینم فکر خیلی زیاد بکنم، خیلی با زمان کم این کار رو انجام دادم. فکر میکنید که چند تا بلیط مترو رو بنده به این ترتیب نقاشی کرده باشم رو بوده بلیط 500 بلیط و 500 شکل مختلف. این یک به اصطلاح ارثیه است که از بداهه نگاری، بداهه نوازی موسیقی به دست من رسیده. یا اینکه اشخاص امضا میکنن، امضا یا به فارسی یا به انگلیسی یا به فرانسه و هر چی، بنده روی این امضاها بدون اینکه به خود امضا دست بردی بزنم، کاری بکنم، اضافه کنم، بیا خطم بیاد روی خط امضا، نه، جدا از اون به ترتیبی که اون رو به صورت تکمیل در بیارم، از حالت امضا در بیارم و یه شکلی درست کنم. این هم باید یه چیزی در حدود 1,000 تا را انجام کنم.
First of all, every time I begin to design anything, some music is playing in the background. This is part of what I have inherited from this music tradition. But there is another aspect that is very important in classical Persian music, and that is improvisation. Before there were notes, people learned these different constructs, these different dasgahs from their masters. They had to learn it by heart. They had to memorize it. For example, if they played one of these dasgahs, shur, depending on how they felt that night, at the moment, it would sound different. If they played the same structure, the same corner, next week, the same person, in a different context, it would be a very different thing. This is what improvisational playing of music in Persian is, and those of you who have seen my book will see how improvisation has become an essential part of my design. Let me give you a couple of examples. I have designed some of the tickets for the French underground. I have designed almost 500 of these tickets. On them there are some numbers, on them there are the lines, the name of the lines, but then in a very improvisational spirit, with the few lines, I have turned it into an artistic work. And this, I think, is improvisation in the realm of design. Another form of work that I have done is to take people's signatures and without interfering at all in their writing or without crossing over into their line, I have, again, in a very improvisational spirit, I turned that signature into an independent design. I have done about 2,000 of these.
شما چه اصراری داشتین که امشب که انقدر خوشیم ما؟ که سنم رفته بالا، مریضم هستم، مراد فرمودید که همچون نمیتونم راه برم باید یکی گاه داشته باشم. بنابراین برای مشکله. با وجود این سعیمو میکنم که یه کارایی بکنم، ولی نه مثل سابق که اونجوری کار میکردم. ولی خب وقتی شروع میکنم فرقی با سابق نداره. ببینید اون کارهایی که انجام میدم که مخصوص خودم بوده، یعنی یه مکتبی به وجود آوردم که بهش میگن کلاف خط به فارسی. اون زایده یه دستیه که این دست نلرزه. معمولا پیرمردا، من الان دارم میرم به 93 سالگی، پیرمردا لرزش دست دارم، بنده ندارم. حالا دلتون میخواد کار بکنم
The question was, how long has it been since you have stopped painting? And if you have in fact stopped painting, how do you feel your life? I know you have been engaged in painting all of your life. Professor Seyhoun said, why you want to spoil this wonderful night? Why do you want to ask a spoiler question? Mr. Bezai said, I want to learn how I must feel my own life when I stop working. I'm worried about this. Professor Seyhoun said, I am old. I'm a little sick. As you notice, I have a hard time walking, but I still do try to do some forms of work. And when I do begin a piece of work, it really has no difference with the kinds of work that I did in the past. I have started a new style of painting that is called kalaf khat. It means there is a design of it in the program, I think. And one of the requirements for that is that your hand must not shake. I'm 93 years old, and my hand does not shake.
سوال من این هست که در معماری قدیم ایران که اثراتی مثل منار جنبان، مثل حمامی که با یه شمع روشن میشد و گرم داشته میشد و یه همچین جداً معجزه های در زمینه معماری قدیم ایران بود. در معماری جدید ایران شما میشه لطف بکنید نام ببرید از اثراتی که واقعا در سطح جهانی اثر بی همتایی داشتن و خیلی اثر جالبی رو در زمین معماری گذاشتن برای ما.
بنده سعی کردم که در کارایی که میکنم این کارها رو نجنبم. این سوال از بنده میشه راجع به منار جنبان. بیشتر از شاید 20-25 سخنرانی که داشتم به خصوص در اصفهان این سوال از من شده و من جوابم این بوده که اگر ما افتخاری در معماریمون داریم، افتخارمون در این است که معماریمون نجنبه. و اما اون موضوع شمعی که حمام رو گرم کرده، این مناجمون هست ولی اون یکی نیست. ما نمیدونیم اون تا چند اندازه زیاده روی شده در معرفیش. بنده همونطور که عرض کردم علاوه بر مدرنیسمی که در ایران در کارهای معماری انجام دادم و همینطور در نقاشی سعی کردم که یه کارهایی کرده باشم، کاری کردم که بالاتر از این باشه. مدرنیسم تو هم باشه با توی عرایزم خدمتتون عرض کردم که تو هم باشه با سمبولیسم، یعنی با شکل‌ها و با اعداد. اگر اعداد بشه وارد کرد، بتونم زندگی یا عرض کنم که تخصص یا شخصیت افرادی رو که براشون این آیات رو می‌سازم اینا رو نمایش بدم. مثلا فرض بکنید که برای نادر شاه یک فرد خیلی ساده‌ای بوده که شما در زندگیش اون تشریفات درباری رو اینا رو نمی‌بینید. من همه اینایی که می‌ساختم قبلا تاریخ زندگیشون رو به دقت مطالعه می‌کردم و بعد فکر می‌کردم که اونو مجسم بکنم. نادر یه آدمی بوده که بی تکلف در صحنه جنگ حرکت می‌کرد، نون و گوشتش رو به عنوان غذای ظهرش یا شبش روی زین اسب می‌خورد و می‌رفته، ولی این حرکت جهشیش برقرار بود. حالا از بنده میخوان که آرامگاهی برای نادر بسازم. من باید این خصلت‌های خاص نادر رو یه جوری در کارم بگنجونم. و اون این است که 4 عامل خواسته بودم از من. یکی خود تالار آرامگاهش، 2 تا موزه، یکی موزه اسلحه زمان نادر، یکی موزه زمان اسلحه ما قبل نادر، و یکی هم مجسمه و پایه مجسمه نادر که جزء مهمترین عوامل این مجموعه باشه. تمام اینا روی سمبل رفته. یک این است که ما 3 جور خط داریم. خط افقی دلیل بر آرامش و سکون و بی‌حرکتی است. خط عمودی دلیل بر پابرجایی و استحکامه. خط مورب دلیل بر جهش. من خط مورب رو انتخاب کردم برای نادر چون کارش کار جهشی بود. اگر دقت کرده باشید پایه مجسمه و خود مجسمه این هر دوش در اولیش کار بنده است. هر دو در یه خط مورب میره. از اونجا قرنیز بزرگی که هر سنگش 16 تن وزنشه، این که میره بالا باز اینم مورب میره. این یعنی نادر. به خود آرامگاه که نگاه میکنیم یک پلان مربع داره. خب من اگر یک کسی دیگه بود به جای من آرامگاه رو میذاشت وسط مربع. من نذاشتم این کار رو. 2 تا دیوار، 2 تا موزه در به صورت 2 ذهنی که چسبیده به همه انجام شده که مربع وسط رو از 2 طرف احاطه کرده و 2 طرف دیگه ستون بندی که آزاده. من فکر کردم که نادر اینجا جنبه جنگی داره، یعنی صحنه جنگی در گوشه قرار بگیره که در پناه 2 دیوار ناظر به صحنه جنگ باشه، ستونها نماد سربازا باشن چه برای کار چه برای جنگ، و نادر از اون گوشه در پناه 2 دیوار ناظر و جنگ باشه. و امثال این خیلی گنجیده شده توی بناهای دیگه هم. این یک کار نوآمده خاصی بود که بعد فکر میکنم که باید افتخار بکنم.
The gentleman who asked the question said, I studied architecture, although I did not continue in that line of work. I'm very proud that an architect has won such an award. But I have a question. Our traditional architecture has had some remarkable or allegedly remarkable buildings. One of them is called Minar Jumbon. These are two towers that parallel one another, and the story is that when one moves, the other also moves. That's why it's called the moving towers. The second is Hammam Kasham, Hammam Fin, and it is alleged that the entire bathhouse was lit by one candle. What have we done in modern architecture that can be said to be equal in terms of its global significance and uniqueness to these two buildings? The answer was that in my buildings, my effort has been so that they don't move. And I have to say that this is not the first time this question has been asked of me. At least 25 times people have asked me, particularly in Isfahan, where people wanted to know about this Minar Jumbon, and I told them that my effort and my pride is that my buildings don't move, don't shake. As to the story of the bathhouse, I think there is a considerable amount of exaggeration on that. My modernism, as well in architecture as in my painting, is that I have tried to combine this architectural modernism with a form of symbolism. I have tried to make the spirit, the expertise of the people that I'm making a building about, a monument about, represented in a symbolic form in that monument. Let me give you an example. They asked for a design for Nader Shah. Nader Shah was an Iranian king. He lived a very simple life. He was averse to courtly grandiosity. Before making any of my buildings, I deeply studied the lives and the habits of the people for whom I'm making this monument. I learned that Nader Shah was a man who lived a simple life. During the war period, he ate on his horse. He ate very simply, a piece of bread, some meat, and he ate it as he moved. In essence, he was constantly in motion. I wanted to build a monument that would reflect this motion. There were 4 elements in this building. There was a hall, there were 2 museums, one arms of the Nader period, one arms that belonged to the Nader period before the Nader period, and a big sculpture and its base representing Nader. I tried to use symbolism in all of these 4 elements. We have in architecture essentially 3 kinds of lines. A horizontal line that symbolizes calm and motionlessness. The perpendicular line that represents security, and a curved line that represents movement. In designing the Nader building, I used the curved line, and I used this curved line even in stones that each weigh 16 tons. And when I was trying to build the place of his burial, I did not want it to become a simple square as most burial places are. I wanted the place of his burial to represent his spirit, the warrior spirit, the movement spirit. That's why there are 2 pillars, and he is in one corner. It is as if he is standing in that corner. The pillars represent the soldiers, and it is as if even in death he is witnessing a field of battle.
کسانی آقایی که دست بلند کردن.
بفهم.
به عنوان استاد مسلم نقاشی در رابطه با کانفلیکت هایی که در دنیا شاهد اون هستیم، به نظر شما به صورت جهانی امکان پذیر می‌بینید؟ اگه امکان پذیره نقاشی میتونه رولی بازی کنه و آیا ممکنه یکی از بهترین اثراتی که دارید در رابطه با صلح جهانی برای ما نام ببرید که به خود یه پیامی برای ونس یا یونتی بودن انسان در دنیا، چون ما به هم مربوط میشیم، فقط در مورد ایران فکر کنیم کافی نیست. یه در صلح جهانی که شما یه پیامی نقاشیاتون به ما میتونه بده، یا اگر همچین نقاشی داریم اجازه تکثیرشون اینه که به جهانی ها معرفی بشه. خیلی متشکرم.
اگر این مثل همچین سوالی بکنید شما رو معرفی نمی‌کنم. والا بنده فکر میکنم که لزومی نداشت که یک کار به خصوصی برای صلح جهانی بخواد انجام بگیره. بنده فکر میکنم که یک اثر هنری تمامش صلح. اینو توجه داشته باشیم ما که واقعا یک اثر هنری اینجوره. یه نقاشی که میکنیم به هر جوری که میخواد باشه یک آرامش و صلح و سلامی به انسان دست میده با دیدنش، با مواجهه باش، که احتیاجی نداره که سوژه یا اون موضوع بخواد جواب مطلب رو بده. خب بعضی سعی کردن که کارهای اینجوری بکنن، یه سمبول از نظر سمبولیسم میشه بعدم بعضی از کارها، ولی اون کاری که واقعا برای این مفهوم قابل عرضه باشه ندارم که الان خدمتتون تعریف میکنم. ولی همینقدر عرض میکنم که تا صلح و سلام و صفا نباشه یک کار هنری اونجوری که باید خودنمایی نخواهد کرد و ظاهر نخواهد شد.
The question was, again, the gentleman began by showing, indicating his gratitude that Professor Seyhoun is here and thanking Bita for organizing events like this. And the question was whether Professor Seyhoun thinks that painting can have any role in creating world peace. It is not enough for paintings to be about Iran. There is a unity of humanity, and painters must not just think about Iran. And if he thinks that the painters have such a role, is there painting of him, Professor Seyhoun, who he thinks does this job of showing the unity of humanity? And if there is such a painting, will he permit us to make copies of it and make it available to everyone? Professor Seyhoun said, if I knew you were going to ask this question, I would not have suggested that they let you ask the question. And then he said in more serious tone that I don't think a work of art needs to work towards world peace. I think any work of art, by definition, brings a kind of peace with it. Painting brings a kind of peace, and a kind of quiet, and a kind of solace to those who watch it. And I don't think that those who have tried to make one painting to represent world peace have succeeded. You can't use symbolism in this way, but I have not produced a work that would fit the description that you have. Moreover, I think that you can have such a painting only when there is world peace, not before. We have time for one last question. There's food upstairs, and there's merriment to be had.
استاد سیمون خیلی ممنون از صحبتتون. من این سوال مشخصی داشتم از شما، این بود که در آثار شما مخصوصا در کار معماریتون الهامی از ترکیب معماری شرقی و غربی دیده میشه، ولی در بعضیاش اینطور نیست. و میخواستم بدونم که شما در انتخاب کارتون و مسیری که انتخاب میکنید، همونطور که در مورد آرامگاه نادرشاه صحبت کردید، در چه مواقعی این ترکیب بین دو فرهنگ و صلاح تونستیم و به دنبالش رفتیم و در چه مواردی به دنبال اون نرفتیم و نمودار یا سمبولیسمی که خودتون راجع به صحبت کردیم حاکم بوده در طرح شما. خیلی
بنده میخوام عرض کنم که ما به هر صورت یک جزئی از جامعه بزرگ بین المللی هستیم. جدا از این جامعه بزرگ نیستیم و داریم پیشرفت میکنیم و داریم تقریبا همه روی زمینه جلو میریم. منتها هر کشوری یه مشخصات فرهنگی، مشخصات اقلیمی، مشخصات محلی داره که باید بی‌بر و برگرد در عالم معماری به اینها توجه کنیم. وقتی که ما گردش میکنیم در ایران خودمون، از نظر فرهنگی میبینیم که مردم ما یه نوع فرهنگ مخصوص خودشون دارن که عادت کردن رو فرق میکنه. راجع به خانه‌های قدیمی صحبت بکنیم. خانه‌های قدیمی بیرونی داشتن، اندرونی داشتن، هر کدوم برای خودش. کسی از خارج که می آمد به اندرونی حق دخالت یا وارد شدن یا دید نداشت، در بیرونی پذیرایی میشد. و این عادت و این فرهنگ هم تو پاورجان مونده تا امروز. حالا که ما داریم میریم جلو و میبینیم که دیگه با اون عرض و طول ما نمیتونیم ساختمان مسکونی بسازیم، میبینیم که باید اجباراً این فرهنگ رو پیاده کنیم به ترتیبی که خانه‌هایی که ما میساختیم، یعنی زمانی که بنده اونجا کار میکردم و دوستان ما و همکارانمون کار میکردن، ما سعی میکردیم که این خصلت رو، این به اصطلاح عادت رو و فرهنگ رو رعایت بکنیم. کسی که وارد میشه دید روی قسمت خواب و انتیمه خونه نداشته باشه. خونه درسته که ما با هم دیگه یکیه، ولی باز اون یه خود حالت بیرونی دیده بشه. و بعد کسی که وارد قسمت پذیرایی میشه، این فقط مهمانان اطراف خودش رو ببینه، اون طرف رو نبینه. و گاهی اوقات دیدیم که انقدر اگزاجره شده، یعنی زیاده روی شده در این فکر که مهمانخانه، اتاق سالن و مهمانخانه در غیر پذیرایی همیشه همطور بدون استفاده گوشه می‌افتاده و میره. پس این یک موضوع مهمه. دو اینکه environment یا محیط زیست خیلی مهمه که ما کجا داریم زندگی امروزیمون از نظر معماری تأمین میکنیم. آیا در امریکا هستیم؟ آیا در کانادا هستیم؟ آیا در اروپا هستیم؟ چه آب و هوایی دارن؟ ایرانی ها از قدیم الایام به این مسائل توجه داشتن. وقتی که ما را میریم در مناطق فارس تخت جمشید رو میبینیم، نقش برجسته داریم به کاخهای تخت جمشید. این نقش برجسته ما از متن 2-3 سانتی متر بیشتر برجستگی نداره. چرا؟ برای اینکه آفتاب زندی که اونجا برقراره با همین 2 سانتی متر اون ارزش تصویری شکل رو تأمین میکنه کافیه. در صورتی که در پاریس جلوی آرک دو تریومف که راه میریم می‌بینیم که اونجا نقش برجسته گذاشتن ولی مجبور شدن انقدر بیارن بیرون که دیگه از نقش برجستگی در بیاد یه مجسمه بشه. چرا؟ برای اینکه هواهمری آفتاب کم داریم و باید این خودشو نشون بده. یا اینکه وقتی ساختمان منزل و مسکون میخوایم انجام بدیم میدادیم یک تتبعی معماران ما کردن که خیلی قابل تحسین با اون این است که فلات ایرانی فلات مرتفع به طور متوسط 600-700 متر از سطح دریا ارتفاع داریم. بنابراین با این ارتفاع ما می‌بینیم در خیلی از مناطق ایران زمستان‌های سرد داریم و چون نزدیک به خط استوا هستیم تابستان‌ها گرم. برای اینکه این رو جوابگو باشیم از نظر معماری آمدن چه کردن؟ مناظر مسکونی رو به طرف جنوب ساختن و ایوان هم گذاشتن. چرا؟ توجه کردن به شرایط جغرافیایی. آفتاب در تابستان با میل خیلی کم یعنی به صورت عمودی بیشتر تابش داره، بنابراین ایوان رو درست کردن که مانع از این بشه که آفتاب وارد خونه بشه. در صورتی که همین آفتاب در زمستان به صورت زاویه حاده تابش داره و این خاصیت جنوب ها، خاصیت شرق و غرب نیست. اونجا آفتاب خیلی اذیت میکنه. مال جنوب میبینیم وقتی که به صورت حاده مال زاویه حاده تابش داره این نه تنها از ایوان عبور میکنه وارد خونه میشه. اینا چیزایی مربوط به ایرانه. یا در کانادا که ما آفتاب خیلی کم داریم می‌بینیم که برج‌های بزرگ ساختن تمام شیشه احتیاج به نور دارن، احتیاج به آفتاب دارن، شیشه لازمه. در صورتی که همه شیشه در ایران یه چیز زائدی است. اگر بخوایم بذاریم باعث زحمت از نظر محیط زیست و از نظر شرایط جغرافیایی. این موضوع ایران. بندم در کارهای خودم خیلی سعی کردم که این مسائل رو حفظ بکنم و خیلی جاها با عکس‌العمل‌های بعضی از ایرانی‌های خودمون که اغلب معمار هستن یا دکتر طب هستن و اظهار نظر میکنن.
The question is that in some of your works of architecture, there is clearly a combination of Eastern and Western motifs. In some of them, we do not see such a combination. When was it and how was it that you decided in some buildings this combination was necessary and required, and where was it that you thought you could simply rely on symbolism? The answer was that we are part of the global system. We are not separate from it. We are moving along with this global movement. We are more or less all moving in the same direction. But at the same time, every culture, every country has its own culture, its own geography, its own native habits. But yet, in architecture, we must take these factors into consideration. Iran, for example, has a culture of its own. If you look at traditional houses, there was a separation between the outer and the inner. The stranger did not have the right to look into the inner sanctum of the house. This habit remained even today. Although we don't build houses as large as we used to, but that cultural disposition has left its imprint even in houses that we build today. And we try to, in the houses we build, with our colleagues, to take this cultural disposition into account. For example, when you enter into these houses that we designed, you had no view of the inner sanctum of the house or the bedroom of the house. If you were led to the place where the guests were entertained, from that room you had no view into any place else other than other guests that were there. Sometimes, of course, we did this to the extreme, and in these cases, then the guest room remained useless unless there were some guests who were in it. The question of environment is also critical. We need to be cognizant of where it is that we live. What is the temperature? What kind of humidity does it have? Iranian architects from ancient times paid particular attention to this. All you have to do is look at Persepolis, and you will see that its reliefs have no more than 2 or 3 inches of height. If you compare this to the reliefs in Paris, for example, you realize that they are so big that they resemble a statue. Why? Because in Persepolis, in Fars, there was sun, and with the help of that sun, that 3-inch was enough to see it. In Paris, there was cloud, and they needed to make these reliefs much, much higher. The other thing that we have to take into consideration is that much of Iran is in a plateau that is about 600 meters above sea level. That means we have hot summers and cold winters. Iranian architecture has traditionally taken very paid careful attention to this. In houses, for example, they built a long hall towards the north, and in this way, when the sun came in, it would not leave too much of an impact in the inner part of the house. Of course, in some parts of Iran, like the Khuzestan province, when the sun is very, very hot, there's no way to stop it. In Canada, for example, they build these long towers, tall towers, and for them, the use of glass is necessary. In Iran, the use of glass is useless and a source of trouble. I try to take these factors into consideration, and that's why many physicians and some architects criticize me. And that's I think we should use.
بنده میخواستم برای آخر جلسه هست شدیداً و با تمام وجود و با قلب خودم از جناب دکتر پروفسور ایرانی تشکر بکنم که ایشون واقعا خدمت میکنن و از نظر فرهنگی یک اساس خیلی مهمی رو در این دانشگاه از خودشون دارن باقی میذارن و به خصوص بنده راجع به خودم از ایشون بی اندازه قلباً و جاناً همه جور تشکر